Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am Mad Capper and this is another video on Raid Shadow Legends. And another of our series of I built them so you don't have to. Before we get to the feature champion, a couple things to note. First of all, I don't know if you're as tired as I was of staring at a white background, but now I have a nice little poster added to my background. I will be adding more posters, you can see one there, and be switching them out at random just to keep you on your toes. Also, I'm adding music back to these videos. I feel it's something that's been missing. It feels a little bit hollow without it, but as many of you had said in my earlier videos, my voice was too quiet. Well, I think I've had that fixed. I have a new mic and I think it should be a lot better. Therefore, I'm going to try to add audio back to these videos for you. Please let me know in the comments down below if it is too much, not enough, or you're just perfectly fine with it. So let's talk about Tallia. Tallia is a champion that in the early days of Raid had a lot of actual hype around her, and there's a lot of videos out there for her, but most of them were made in 2019. A lot has happened since that time, so I think it is well worth taking a look at the champion. So without further ado, let's take a look at Tallia. Tallia is a magic affinity epic attack-based champion of the Sacred Order. Let's take a look at her toolkit, see if she is the type of champion that you might want to use. So her HP, 12,390, way lower than I want it to be. I don't like that I understand why glass cannons, but we'll talk about more about it at the end, but that's such a low HP for a champion who's a little bit more utility than just straight out attack. Her attack, 1343, is okay. It's not amazing, but it is okay. Her defense, 1134, is actually fairly strong for an attack-based champion. Speed 98, on the upper end of okay. It's not quite good. It's not quite in that 100 plus speed where you're like, oh, this is really good speed, but it's not awful. It's something you can definitely work with. Crit rate, crit damage, resist, all kind of standard. As far as her toolkit goes, her aura is an ally crit rate in dungeons by 15%. Her A3 places a counterattack buff on this champion for 2 turns, has a 75% bookable to 100% chance of placing a 25% weaken debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. This is a 6-turn bookable to a 5-turn cooldown. Her A2, which is important to note, is the default skill that she uses first, is place a 25% increased attack buff and a 30% increased crit rate buff on this champion for 2 turns, then attacks all enemies. And she also has a couple ability, which has a 75% chance of placing a bomb debuff that will detonate after 3 turns when Phoenix is on the same team. Incidentally, Phoenix's ability is that his A2 will actually reduce the cooldowns by 1 turn when she is on the team. So it's a good synergy, not a great one because bombs aren't that amazing, and the 3-turn to 2-turn is somewhat unusable, but it's still an ability that adds to the game if you have both Phoenix and Tallia and are using them in the same fight. Her A1 is a standard but very usable, attacks one enemy 3 times. Now let's go visit and see how I geared her out for this video. So here's my Tallia build. The first thing you're probably gonna jump right at you is a stat, so let's just jump right into that and talk about it. Total stats here, 27,000 HP, very fragile, glass cannon. 4371 attack, crit rate you'll notice is 85%, and we'll talk about why I'm doing that in a second. Crit damage 262, debuff accuracy 233. This is going to catch kind of your slow team, your low team type of things. It's not going to be a huge deal, but the weaken is an extra modifier, so it was always nice if you're not using your Venus, you're not using a Draco in the arena. This is going to be a helpful thing to you. In dungeons, it's great because most dungeons, 233 is more than enough to land. But let's talk about why I am going with the lower crit damage. First of all, as you can see, using full cruel gear. This is Rodos's gear, -1 set. I just took it from him. Poor guy. Every time I do a video on an attack-based champion, no matter what he's wearing, I seem to steal it. I gave his gear to Candrafon, and yet I'm still stealing his gear. So I don't know. I feel bad for the guy. Not too bad, though. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using this in the arena. And this actually gives you a 25% increased attack. So if you don't have a better one, at least it's giving you something. Really, the baby one's kind of too bad. But gives a 30% increased crit rate. So what I've decided to do is build out for this specific condition using her in that nuke position. So we're just going to use that rise to duty. We're just going to give her that extra increased crit rate. And that allowed me to push my crit damage about 10% higher. Ultimately a little bit faster too. So that's how we're going to use her. We're also going to take her into the campaign and in dungeons. We're just kind of generally use her in all areas and see what we can do. As for her masteries, now I did have her in different masteries. She is a multi-hit A1, which I did have a Giant Slayer on, but I'm not going to showcase her in the Clan Boss. There are very specific comps, unkillable comps, where you could use her. For example, there's one where I use Lord Shazar as my lead. You could substitute her in for that, and I think she would work reasonably well, but I don't think that's where she's going to shine. I think they're telling you she's got a dungeon aura. She's probably going to be good in dungeons. Plus, I think that arena, that nuking ability for the arena is going to be huge for her. So as you can see here, we've done an offense tree. I kind of went wishy-washy back and forth. I did take the 50% less health or less because I wanted this. I really feel like the 8% hit on each enemy really outshines the fact that to go for this. Like I could have gone these two, dropped this, but then I don't get this, and that means I'm either healing myself or I'm getting extra speed. There's not an extra damage. So at the end of the day, this trumps this, and then I have to take this to get it. And plus, if we're losing some health but still surviving, that's just going to give us the extra damage. Also, if we're happen to be stunned, sleep, or fear, true fear, or freeze, this is going to be in the second comp. That's going to be a huge thing for me. And of course, Helm Smasher, because we want to try to do as much damage as humanly possible. I also made another judgment call. I'm trying this route out instead. I could have went diagonal in, but I kind of like the fact that this decreases damage received by this champ by 8% when hit with critical hit. I'm starting to really warm up to that as a go-to. And the 30% chance to place a Bach debuff. So if she happens to get stunned or frozen, then she can't in subsequent turns. A 30% chance is always a good thing. And resist for each debuff on this champion. Any resist is good resist, and of course this, which is every attack champion. I personally believe every attack champion should have this. Any chance to just counter someone who hits you hard is always a good thing. So, let's take her into the campaign. We'll take her into dungeons. We'll take her into the arena. We'll see what happens. So I've sped this up so it'll be a little bit quicker. I mean, the big thing to show here is that she can easily and efficiently farm 12-3, so you can use her as your campaign farmer. She's not the best option because she only has this one AoE nuke, but she can get past the first wave. She puts the weaken up. She's got the crit rate aura and the enhanced crit rate plus the counterattack, so she's gonna have no problem doing it. Probably better than your campaign farmer, or at least as good as your campaign farmer, and easily done. So we brought her into the dragon just to give you a good idea of what she can do in the dragon. Again, 2 tons. I also put her in an all epic team, so you can kind of mimic the sort of team you'd probably be using her in that early to mid game. Everything about her toolkit lends pretty well to this. It's not a speed farm, again only having 1 AoE, but as you can see, she's doing amazing damage. She really trashed the first wave. She's doing good damage against the second wave, and she's going to be generally helpful. Could be the Ice Golem and show the same thing. She, of course, not very good in Spider, and probably not unless you don't have a better option in the Fire Knight. She does have a multi-hit A1, a 3-hit A1, so it will help in that respect, but she is weak affinity, so you're going to have better damage dealers overall. But she can sub in for the Fire Knight, and definitely level 20 dungeons until you kind of get that dual Royal Guard or kind of that end game stuff. She's going to be perfectly usable into the late game for Dragon if you until you kind of get that, like I said, that speed farm. So this is a bit of a we did this with the Ripper, and I really like doing this where I'm going to compare the damage that she can do to Ethos. Now Ethos is my best AoE nuking champion and probably second in the arena only to Trunda, arguably. So as AoE go, it's a really good way to demonstrate what kind of damage you can do. We also picked a very high defense team, so this is going to be a fair and strong comparison showing a team that can take the damage so that we can show both of them in there. So the first turn we're going to, of course, we're going to boost and we're going to debuff. So anytime now. So there's the boost. We're going to debuff it, And then we're going to use Tallia's A2. Of course, we slowed it down so that you can see it. Now, this is where that increased crit rate goes. Ultimately, perfect scenario, you have 70% crit rate. This is going to increase it to 100%, and you're going to nuke. This will work on auto. Obviously not Madame Saris, but definitely she'll use her A2 over her A3. So that's going to be very helpful for you. So there you go. Overall, the damage we did was 42,000, 39,000. I missed the weak hit on Skull Crusher and 64,000. So pretty good damage there. You know, 42 on a Rosin, it didn't weak hit. That 39 on the Raglan, who's always a high defense champion. And the 64,000 on Duchess, who's a little less of a, because she's a support, but still usually built very high defense. So now, as usual, we're going to reset ourselves and try again. And instantaneously, we find ourselves at the second scenario with Ethos, ready to go. Tallia, we're just going to burn her A1, which actually hits him really hard there. If that first one wouldn't have weak hit, probably would have killed him. But just gives an opportunity to see what the damage Ethos is going to do. And we're going to use his A3. It's a slightly better modifier and easier for me to read. So there you go. 56, 40, 44, and 75,000 respectively. So that is an additional about 14,000 on Rosin, an additional 1,000, which obviously was a probably a Helm Smasher proc versus not procking, 1,000 on Raglan, and weak hit, so we're not going to compare the two on Skull Crusher, and about 11,000 better damage on the Duchess. So now we're going to compare A1s. In this scenario, we just want to see again what are the modifiers. Now we can look at modifiers on paper, but I like seeing the functional value difference. And I know there's an argument to be made that I'm using different gear, but it's similar gear. So there we go, 17, 23, 23. That first one obviously didn't get the Helm Smasher, which also showcases how good Helm Smasher is, right? So total of 63,000 roughly. He does 70,000. I'm guessing those are both Helm Smasher. So about a 10% difference, give or take, between the two. Very good, very amazing damage on the Tallia. Okay, just a quick interjection here. You can see we have actually changed Tallia up slightly. This is going to be a slow comp build, so you can see she's a lot slower. We've increased her attack and her HP. Her defense is about the same, and her crit rate is about the same. I was trying to get it down to 70, but it required way too much playing around. But we've upped her crit damage here. Now, this is going to be on a team that goes second. We're going to see whether or not she can be viable as an option for a go second or a slow comp team. So I was having some problems finding a good team to go up against. I kept going first with a Sir Nick lead, so it was pretty crazy. But this is a pretty good, even though this one didn't really quite work out because of Tormund, we'll show you, I'll show you kind of the thought process. So normally I go up against a blender comp. I'm going to bring in my slow comp team because it can survive a lot of blenders. Whereas if she's faster, my speed comp team dies. So this would be the smarter move for me, is to fight a blender comp with this team. Now, as you see, a full 4 freeze never happens. Does happen when I'm trying to make a video. But as we play through, we'll see that it goes, it kind of goes in my favor as far as showing this out. So obviously I'm delaying. Normally I would obviously use Sir Nick's A2. I would do way more damage. Of course, we get another freeze. But you already see like that one counter attack, and you know she might be in trouble. Look how much damage she took on that first one, and that's the problem. Is the point of her is to be able to survive that. And here you go. That's a good example. Now, thank God my Sir Nick is an absolute beast. He landed that with the unkillable. Then he cleans up pretty easily and survives with Tormund just sitting around frozen. But you see how that wave happened. If we're in a slow comp team where we're trying to play survivability, she ain't surviving, and that's unfortunate because of her high defense. I really feel like that's a miss on the developers. Like, she could be built to be that team. Her A3 allows it, her A2 allows it, just doesn't have enough HP to survive. My final thoughts on Tallia are this. First of all, let's talk about her aesthetics. She might be my favorite looking champion. The flowing red hair against the stark white background, the armor that has that charcoaly gray feel with that beautiful blood red tunic and detailing on her shoulders. I know she's a reskin, but she is probably still one of my favorites. That sword is badass. Overall, love her look. Now, of course, that's not going to help you get through the game, but I think it's important to mention. I really hope that these sort of champions get kind of not a full reskin, but just a rehash with whatever they're doing now, because their new champions definitely pop more. They're a little bit crisper. They have, like, maybe it's just a better HDR renderer. I don't know what it is, but they definitely just have that slightly better look to them. And if you took a champion that looks like this and applied that kind of whatever they're doing now to it, I think it would just make it look all the more better. As far as her toolkit goes, again, I really like it. I think early to mid game, she's going to really help you out. She's going to be good for the campaign. She's going to be good in dungeons. She's going to be good in arena for you. And overall, a champion that you can use everywhere right through the mid game. Into the late game, she definitely falls off. You're going to probably replace her as your campaign farmer. You're probably going to replace her in a lot of dungeons. The difference here is, and let's talk about, for example, Ripper, who I did in the last video, hits way harder than she does, but on a one target. And when you're running against the dragon, that's not very useful for you because it's not like enemy max HP good. It's just good against one champion. You'd rather have this hard hitting AoE, even if it's, say, 20% less damage, because it's hitting everyone. And that's where she really excels. So the difference being is, I would put Ripper in a team if I don't have another attack champion to put in there, like a second attack champion. Whereas Tallia, I'd put her in my team until I got another champion. Now, that's a huge difference, right? That's a passive thing. I like Tallia being in the team, but if I get an Ethos, if I get a second Royal Guard, if I get those sort of things, then definitely I'll swap her out. But she's not out of place in these level 20 dungeons. And that's important because if you're going to spend these resources, especially as a free-to-play, you want to know that she's a champion that's not just going to be vaulted and forever forgotten. And I don't think she will be. If you're looking to use her early, you're probably going to use her often until you pull a champion that you'll be so excited you won't mind the fact that you're vaulting her. Faction Wars, really good. She actually helped me get through Faction Wars 21 originally, and I think she can hold her own in any sort of Faction Wars scenario. And it took until I pulled Cupidus actually to replace her, because the Cupidus with Venus connection is an amazing thing, especially for Faction Wars. So it really helped me out there. But other than that, I mean, I think she would still probably be on my Faction Wars team. Arena, she will probably get you 2 gold for. I think as a nuker, you can put her in that team and she will get you there. But that's about all. She really kind of has this sharp fall off. And it's not so much her damage, it's her survivability. There's a point at which you might not just be able to flash farm champions, and that's where she's going to struggle. And that's where you need these slow comp teams, to which she looks like she should be part of, but unfortunately isn't. And that's where the miss is. So what would I do to make her better? Well, there's a couple very minor things to her kit that I would change. This here should be a 4-turn bookable to 3 turns. 6 turns is ridiculous. That makes it useless in most even dungeons. So why? Just make it better. This here, I would change her buff to 3 turns. And the reason is this. So consider fully booked. You'd have a 4-turn or a 3-turn, a 3-turn. Turn 1, she uses this. So she buffs herself and attacks. Great. Then it loses a turn. So now it's down to 1 turn. Turn 2, she uses her A3, which doesn't attack. So it doesn't even make use of the buff. And then turn 3, she uses her A1. The buff's already fallen off. So in order to make her, to maximize her damage, you probably still need to put her at 100% crit rate. However, if you make this a 3-turn, then that cycle is complete and she's always got it up. And that's not a bad thing. Having a champion that always has a 30% crit rate on themselves is good. It's a good thing. Let her have it. change it to 3-turn buff. The last thing and most important thing that needs to change in order for her to do what her kit tells me she should be doing. So she's got this reasonably good defense for an attack-based champion. Despite she's got an okay attack, her modifiers are obviously enough that she hits really hard. And because she's got this counterattack ability, I feel the need to put her into comps that are sustain comps, right? That are stall comps, that are different things where she's going to get multi-attacks in. The problem is she ain't going to survive because her HP is way too low. Even the best defense in the world, when she's only got 25, 27 HP, in order to get her attack as good as we need it, she either has to sacrifice attack and not be good enough, or she has to sacrifice HP and not live. Give her 18,000 HP. Give her 19,000 HP. Then she survives. She counterattacks. She buffs. She nukes. Then I'm not saying she's going to be a platinum level player, but that's not what she's about. I think it makes her better in dungeons. It makes her better in arena, but doesn't make her OP in either. So give her 19,000 HP. Make her more viable to that free-to-play player that picks her up, builds her, puts her in his best gear so that he can use her everywhere. All she needs is HP to be used everywhere. Then I think she would be a lot more usable in a lot more scenarios. At the end of the day, I consider her a build, not a strong build, but a build. Good for faction wars, amazing for early game, good for mid game, into late game, but ultimately is probably going to be replaced. Those are my thoughts on Tallia. What do you think? Do you agree, disagree? Please let me know in the description down below. Also, let me know what you think about the music. I did use background music this time. Was it a distraction? Was it fine? I know it was eclectic. I didn't put any theme together, so you might be wondering what the living F. But again, I'm just trying to test it out to see if I can bring that back into it. Finally, please like, subscribe, notify. It really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. Also helps me out with the content creator program, and I really appreciate your support so far, and I can only appreciate it more as we continue down this path. Thank you for joining me on this video. Most importantly, of course, be kind to one another, stay safe, practice social distancing, and we'll see you in the next video.